ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to another edition of Plaquemines Prep Rewind. As always, joined by Jason Tonglet, who's putting up a little Tabasco on his oysters there. I'm Cody Juneau, and Jason, talk about some Tabasco. That Belle Chasse offense is on fire.
Yeah, that Belle Chasse offense is hot right now. And
Boom, boom, right?
little rim shot to start the show there. But yeah, Belle Chasse is on fire. South Plaquemines maybe not so much so far, but
we have a reason for that.
We're going to
touch on that. Of course, we got some good recaps, some previews for you. But before we go to our first break, we want to talk a little bit about the Belle Chasse volleyball team. Starting the season off very strong, like we would expect from Coach Anne-Marie Reynolds. And
did you have to think about that? Is that what that was?
Well, I had to make sure I got her last name right, because it used to be something else.
That's right.
And she's led her team to 10 consecutive playoff appearances and 2 consecutive quarterfinal appearances.
That's the way to do it.
So we can expect something good from that.
Yeah, I would think so. They're becoming one of these traditional teams that's always in the mix. So stay tuned as the season progresses. We'll bring you all the results as we have
Now,
them.
the question is, do they compete against Ben Franklin in volleyball? Because Ben Franklin has been a power. That's the one thing that Ben Franklin's a power in, is volleyball.
Well, it was like last year. South Plaquemines in the district with Curtis. They were probably the second best team in that district, but can they compete?
Right.
And that's the question that's going to have to be answered.
Yeah, that's one of those new district questions we're going to definitely have to check out. But we will have a lot on this Belle Chasse volleyball team throughout the season, as well as South Plaquemines, because they make the playoffs a pretty good bit as well. But as far as this show, when we come back after break, we're going to recap weeks 1 and 2 of Belle Chasse and South Plaquemines football. All that and more coming up at Salvo Seafood right after this. Prep Rewind is proudly sponsored by Deltone Electric and Air Conditioning. We'll fix it in a flash. Reed McClellan with Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Lori Spar Insurance, your independent agent for Plaquemines Parish. Blanchard's Auto Parts, experience the Napa know-how. Bubrig Insurance, the insurance professional of Plaquemines Parish. Amos Cormier, Parish President 2014. One of us to lead all of us. Palazzo Law Firm, experienced trial attorneys. Turf Dogs, an insured and dependable lawn service. Deep South Media and Consulting. We can't stop time, but we can capture it. And Twinkie Martinez Productions, a funny name for a serious business. They're just as good this week as they were 2 weeks ago?
Oh, yeah, they're great. They are wonderful. Supposedly, we're going to get an order. Anybody that watches the prep game of the week knows.
Well, everybody watches.
Everybody watching this watches prep game of the week. Coach Amos always, I put a little too much Tabasco, so it's going to be a little tough right now. Coach Amos always mentions one dish at Salvo's. And you know what that is? The clams. He gets clammed up every week. He talks about clams. So for all the different,
like from New England, clam chowder.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So for all the weeks we've come here, they've given us, different things every time, and for some reason we've never gotten the clams. So I actually came in. I was like, guys, you guys have the clams on the menu? And they're like, yeah. So all right, we'll get an order of clams tonight. So
in honor of Coach Amos.
So Coach, this is for you.
One week we'll get him here, and he'll.
I was gonna say I hope they're good, but I mean I've never had anything at Salvo's, and I'm like, wow,
right,
this
it's
is
not
bad.
good, right?
It's all good here.
All I know is I'm getting my fried pickles.
Yeah.
And obviously we're back with Plaquemines Prep Rewind.
Yeah, there's that too.
For this segment at Salvo Seafood. And Jason, you were at the Belle Chasse South Plaquemines game, like pretty much everybody in the parish was.
Yeah,
and
who's who of Plaquemines Parish was in attendance that
night. And of course, Belle Chasse beat the South Plaquemines Hurricanes 54-22. But it was closer than what the score ended up being.
Don't let that score fool you. It was literally 24-22. South Plaquemines had scored a touchdown, went for a 2-point conversion, did not get it. Had they gotten it, score would have been tied at 24, maybe a different ball game. And I think this game played out kind of the way we talked about it, where South Plaquemines has talent, you can see that, but the depth, it took its toll. And Belle Chasse has a full offense and a full defense. Over the course of time, that kind of wears on a team that's playing both ways. And, that was kind of the story at the end. But beyond that, let's, talk about this Belle Chasse offense, because that was our first chance to really see it come to fruition. And all I can say is, wow, that was really my first chance to see Andrew Hicks at quarterback.
Coming out party.
Yeah, coming out party. Taron Ancolad playing every position they could find to play him where he could be involved. Devin Silva, a hard-nosed running back that has a lot of speed as well. You know, that team is really built. It's kind of a three-headed monster right there with the running back, the wide receiver, running back, quarterback, and the quarterback. So, you know, who knows? The sky's the limit, and I know we'll talk about it more, but that offense really is rolling right now.
I know I get to see Carson McClellan a lot because Reed McClellan, who's a sponsor, thank you, Reed, tailgates with us at the LSU games. And I know my dad said, Carson, how good is your quarterback? How good is Hicks? He goes, I don't know, Mr. Juneau. He said, usually by the time I turn around, he's either down the field or scoring a touchdown. So I really don't get to see him too much because I'm blocking.
Throw a block and look, hey, he's gone.
But, yeah.
But you know what? That's to Carson's credit because he's opening holes for Andrew to run through and score.
This offense is definitely doing some good things. Of course, everybody knows Coach Harrison is a spread type of guy.
Yeah.
And he finally has the athletes. And it's his system now, being in his second year, where he can put him in places that he sees fit.
Absolutely. And I got to hear he was actually being interviewed on the radio after the game against Carver last week. And you could tell he just sounds happy. Last year, he didn't really seem like he had his groove. Like you said, you know, he was kind of trying to put together his team with the best he had. And he had some injuries to deal with last year as well. Obviously, Andrew Hicks was his guy.
Starting, your best lineman was hurt in Carson McClellan last year, and his starting quarterback. So he had to kind of patch it together.
Yeah, obviously with those pieces in place, it is a much different story for Coach Harrison this year. And, you know, who knows how far he can go. Again, he's got to get his team ready for that brutal district that they get into. Somebody else even online made a comment that is like playing in the SEC when you're in that district in New Orleans.
Exactly, and we've said that for 2 years now. Yeah. And all they really did was lose Shaw, but they picked up Warren Easton.
Yeah,
which is if just as good, if not better, than Shaw. But talk about South Plaquemines a little bit in that game where, like you said, they got worn down a little bit, but Wilson is a beast.
Sean Wilson is a beast. Now, it's funny, if you watched our second game of the week against South Lafourche, he even changed numbers so he could play more along the offensive line. He's wearing a number in the 70s as opposed to his 32. But, yeah, I mean, there's one hit, and I don't know if we've got the clip, but he hit Taron Ancolad head on and just ran through him. A little two-lane on two-lane violence there. But
I'm sure Coach Curtis Johnson was happy.
Yeah. You know, if you watch that game, you know our players of the week were Taron Ancolad, Sean Wilson. So the Curtis Johnson special, if you will. But, yeah, I mean, they ask him to do a lot on that team. And, again, when you've got a team that's only got maybe 35, 36 players, you do need to do a little more. You can't just be a stud linebacker. You can't just be a stud offensive lineman. They play him along the line. They play him as an H-back. They play him as a tight end. He plays on the defensive line. He plays linebacker. You know, he is all over the field. And not to say that he's the only guy. They're kind of going with a two-headed monster at quarterback. And what was funny, we talked about Kendrick Smith and I believe Drew Sanger were the two quarterbacks that got all the hype. And we kept saying, you know, Brandon Sherman played quarterback last year, but we haven't heard a thing about him. Well, guess who's the quarterback again this year? It's Brandon Sherman, although he did get dinged up in the last game. And they're kind of platooning. Kendrick Smith will play a little bit at quarterback. And almost kind of they give you that more run option. Brandon Sherman is more of the pocket passer, but he does run as well. And again, a lot of what that team does is predicated on how they can run the football from that spread. They kind of run a very similar offense to what Belle Chasse does. They just like to run it a lot more, as Belle Chasse would prefer to throw it more.
And talking about that game, we'll go into the second week, of course, because that was the only game in week one was those two teams facing against each other. Second week, South Plaquemines, also the game of the week. They face South Lafourche, another upper classification type of school coming down to Port Selfridge. So they faced a 4A team and a 5A team, and South Lafourche isn't what they were last year, but they still got the depth.
And that's a couple of observations. South Lafourche is not last year's South Lafourche. It took them until the middle of the second quarter of the South Plaquemines game before they scored their first points of the season.
Credit to South Plaquemines' defense.
Credit to South Plaquemines' defense. And, you know, we kind of made light of this during the game. They've got Bailey Grenier, the big lineman. I mean, he was 6'6", 320. If you couldn't pick him out on the screen, you just weren't watching the game.
He's being very
he literally looked like he ate the lineman next to him when they were in the huddle. They completely ran an offense that never went behind him. They ran away from him at every opportunity. And we actually had one of the defensive coaches from South Plaquemines in the booth with us calling out, and he's like, the guy's just a tree. They don't do anything with him. They just stick him over there and they run away from it. So South Plaquemines, again, give them a lot of credit. You know, we talk about depth, but you can't teach speed, and they've got the speed. And their linebackers, you know, again, Sean Wilson involved a lot. But being able to beat guys to the edge, they blew up all these option plays that South Lafourche ran early. And it was a very competitive game, like you said, until that depth started to take its toll. Biggest loss for South Plaquemines in that game probably came on their best offensive play. Wade Bartholomew broke a big, about a 30-yard run up the middle, but was dragged down by a horse collar, hurt his leg on that play, was done for the day, was actually taken to the hospital as a precautionary measure. And when his absence, the South Plaquemines offense kind of went with him.
Yeah.
And that was definitely a problem throughout the game. Brandon Sherman played quarterback for the majority of the game, but he was constantly under pressure. It was that hit the quarterback mentality you hear in the NFL right now. And poor Brandon, he took a licking. But, you know, he kept on ticking for the good portion of the game. Unfortunately, it just wore him out at the end. South Lafourche's depth took its toll, and the game ended 27
to nothing. But like we said, first 2 weeks for South Plaquemines, playing upper echelon type of schools and classification-wise numbers. This week we'll get to it, and after the break, they face a team that's a little bit more on their level. But before we do that, let's recap Belle Chase's second game, where they played Carver.
I think they just scored again.
And of course, it's not last year's Carver.
No, this is not.
It's not Raheem Falcons and those type of guys. But it was still a pretty good Carver team. They beat them 49-28, averaging 51.5 points after weeks 1 and week 2. Not too bad.
And even that score is a little closer than you would have thought. It was 42-6 at halftime. So obviously,
the second teamers come in, the third teamers come in.
As Coach Amos would say, you see some clean uniforms out there in the third and fourth quarter. So, you know, good opportunity for Coach Harrison to get a lot of guys some time to play, because really the way last season went, you didn't have a lot of opportunities like that to see what you had in the way of depth. And when you got 80, 90 guys on a roster, you do want to see what's behind your first team and maybe even your second team as you get to the late stages of that game. So perfect opportunity. Again, the offense, just like we talked about, explosive, powerful. But biggest thing for that, they can kind of build up to their bigger game, which they'll have coming up this week.
Yeah, good segue there. As coming up after the break, we are going to talk about weeks 3 and week 4. We're going to preview the games for Belle Chasse and South Plaquemines, as we will be in Belle Chasse for the next 2 weeks for the game of the week. All that and more coming up at Salvo Seafood with Plaquemines Prep Rewind after this.
Prep Rewind is proudly sponsored by Deltone Electric and Air Conditioning. We'll fix it in a flash. Reed McClellan with Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Lori Spar Insurance, your independent agent for Plaquemines Parish. Blanchard's Auto Parts, experience the Napa know-how. Bubrig Insurance, the insurance professional of Plaquemines Parish. Amos Cormier, Parish President 2014. One of us to lead all of us. Palazzo Law Firm, experienced trial attorneys. Turf Dogs, an insured and dependable lawn service. Deep South Media and Consulting. We can't stop time, but we can capture. And Twinkie Martinez Productions, a funny name for a serious business.
And welcome back to Salvo Seafood and Plaquemines Prep Rewind.
Might have to order a
Jason,
second
how's
tray.
those oysters?
Man, they're good. A little spicy, but that's
because you put
that's
Tabasco
this guy
sauce
that put the
on it.
Tabasco
That's what
all
happens
over
when
here.
you put Tabasco sauce.
I think I
Anyway,
ate the pearl.
let's get to the previews for weeks 3 and week 4. We'll start off with the game that's not the game of the week. South Plaquemines, of course, we said they're 0-2, taking on Wilkinson County, Mississippi, taking a nice little trip to the other side of the border, not too far on the other side.
Pretty much right on the other side of the border. Woodville, Mississippi is where Wilkinson County High School is.
I've heard of Woodville.
No, if you've crossed I-55, it's right there. You go through Bogalusa, it's right there on the other side of the state line. Wilkinson County comes in 3-1. Their season starts a couple weeks before the Louisiana season, so they've got 4 games under their belt already.
Yeah.
They were 1-1 when we last talked about them, so they've gone on, I believe they've actually gone on a 3-game winning streak.
Yeah, they're led by dual threat quarterback Devin Voorhees, who, when you said it last time, I was like, man, that name sounds familiar. Yeah, he's committed to LSU.
Okay.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
He's their kind of do-it-all type of dual-threat quarterback. He's got 300 yards rushing on the season, 300 yards passing on the season. Their offense scores about 20 to 30 points, but their defense gives up about 20 to 30 points. Should be a great matchup between Voorhees and Wilson.
Yeah,
That's what I want to see.
You know,
Or
that
if we could see it, is what I would want to see.
that
but-
yeah, well, hopefully somebody will send us some video of what's going on out in Mississippi. But you're right, Sean Wilson definitely the key to that defense, and Devin Voorhees the key. Really, I think he plays offense and defense, kind of like Sean Wilson does.
Because he was signed as a cornerback.
So, you know, these are smaller schools, and here come those clams we were talking about before. We're gonna have to slide those in here. You see, this is for Coach Amos if he's
my
at home
fried
watching,
pickles.
and Cody
Love
gets
my
his
fried
pickles.
Thank you very much.
So, what were we talking about? Oh, football.
Yeah, football.
So yeah, the Devin Voorhees matchup, like we said, you know, this is a smaller school, but kind of like a South Plaquemines would be in Mississippi, where you know the numbers are going to match up a little bit better
Yeah.
for South Plaquemines. So we'll just kind of have to see how it goes.
When we get to our picks later in the show, you're going to see Jason and I kind of differ on this. You're going to see who's actually really a Plaqueminian when we vote on that. Yeah, it's going to be a great matchup. Nice little, like I said, nice little trip for South Plaquemines to get out of Port Sulphur.
Yeah,
and to
they've
go
played
see
nothing but home games so far.
to go
So
see the other part of the world.
yeah, it'd be nice to get,
To Mississippi.
nice to get them a trip. We were picking on South Lafourche the whole time. We're like, wouldn't it have been so much easier for them to just take boats and come across Barrett's Area Bay? That would have been like a 20-minute boat ride. Instead,
And the
it's like
funny
a
thing was the Battle of the Boot was the week before that.
Yeah. I was like, this because we kept calling that the Battle of the Bay because
Yeah.
I'm like, they're on one side, we're on the other. They probably drove 2.5, 3 hours. I was actually at 11 o'clock at night. Their bus was still in front of me going home to my house in Gretna. So,
Nice. Nice little trip for them, huh?
yeah.
Now going to the game of the week, which is Belle Chasse versus Bruley. Again, we said Belle Chasse averaging 51.5 points a game. Bruley's looking to rebound. They lost to the Plaquemine Green Devils last week, 30-20. They have a lot of upperclassmen. They run what they call a spread wing tee, which is kind of totally the opposite of the wing tee because the wing tee is a tight formation.
Yeah.
Spread's a spread. And they have a 4-3 defense now. Bruley's coached by Coach Eric Willis. He's very well known in the Baton Rouge area. This team is a good team, not the team as it was last year because the team last year made it to the regionals, barely lost in the regionals to, I want to say it was either Curtis or Evangel. It was one of the bigger teams. But it's a pretty good football team. They're going to make the trek down to Belle Chasse, so that's going to be about almost an hour and 45, if not 2 hours, depending on traffic, because they're on the other side of the Baton Rouge Bridge.
Yeah, kind of coming from somewhere in between Plaquemine, Port Allen area and Donaldsonville on that
Bruley.
side. Yeah, and Bruley.
Coming from Bruley.
You know, I honestly, I knew Bruley was in that vicinity. I didn't know specifically, so I did
It's
go
when,
look it
when
up.
you go over the bridge in Baton Rouge, instead of going to taking a right to go to Plaquemine,
you take a left and
you go
head down to Bruley.
Addis, that type of area. But really good athletes. It's going to be a good test for Belle Chasse. Even though they're a 3A school, we're going to find out exactly how good Belle Chasse is in this
Yeah,
game.
I think this is the telltale game, I think, for Belle
Right.
Chasse in the early going, because you know from some of the other non-district games we saw in Belle Chasse's schedule, I think pretty much the rest of them are going to be winnable games. You know, other than maybe this one here. So we'll have to
Yeah.
wait and see.
This is the only question mark. And then you go to the next week, and South Plaquemine's playing two teams where their colors are mostly green. This in week 4, they're going to be playing Cohen, 0-2. And again, not the same Cohen team as last year. It's a district opener, which is amazing that South Plaquemine has that many district games already. It's going to be starting in week 4. They Cohen Green Hornets, they played 2 5A teams in the first 3 weeks. They played Errett, and the other team escapes me, of course, as soon as I got on air. But I believe you were saying isn't it the final season as a school?
Well, Cohen is in this state of transition right now where it's actually two schools playing together. It's
Yeah.
Cohen High School, and the school that you see is actually Cohen Collegiate Prep. Cohen High School is going away at the end of the year. They're actually down to just a senior class. They've been phasing out classes as they go. I've learned my brother was actually a teacher at Cohen High School last year. So,
Right.
you know, they have a good coach in Perry McCarty. He's been there, I think, 3 years now. You know, they actually, it's like small victories for Cohen. They scored a touchdown in last week's game, and that was good for them. He talked about it. You'd like to get some discipline. You'd like to see some
Hammond,
things
that's the other
out
team
of the team.
I
Yeah,
apologize.
Hammond, the Tours.
Yeah.
So, this game was, South Plaquemines really put the lights out on Cohen last year, literally. If you watched that game, that was when we had the infamous 30-minute power outage in Port Sulphur. But probably similar results again this year. Kind of a chance for South Plaquemines to, again, play a team with similar numbers, but probably not as much talent.
Yeah.
And the talent that a team like Cohen does have is kind of undisciplined. We talk about it a lot. Some of those smaller Orleans public school systems, I'm going to fling an oyster at you there.
Yeah, I know.
They just don't play with the kind of discipline. And, you've got a good coach there. Coach McCarty can probably get the best out of those players. He just doesn't have enough of them to compete on the level that a lot of those other 2A schools. At least for him, he's not in a district with Curtis anymore, kind of like South Plaquemines.
It's like I said, the district opener. It's going to be another. Not really. I don't really consider this a test because I just see South Plaquemines going to be running away with this. But hey, it's a district opener. You never know what's going to happen in the district. And then we're going to go to the game of the week. Another team that's green.
A lot of green going on here.
Yeah, South Terrebonne Gators. They're 1-1. They play John McDonough in week 3, so this week. And
so they'll be 2-1 going into the game.
And they've had the same coach for 30 years.
Wow, and they're not some traditional power team. They're not even really that good.
But
to
it's
be
a
honest
guy, I
with
guess,
you.
who just 500 is okay with them. It's going to be the second straight team in consecutive weeks that Belle Chasse will face that runs the wing T offense. So Bruley will actually help Belle Chasse prepare for this team, get used to the wing T, not anywhere near Bruley's capacity as far as running the wing T.
And I would assume, I don't know specifically, I would have to think that that's probably homecoming week for Belle Chasse, just based on how the schedule fell.
Yeah, how it falls. It looks like it could be
could be really homecoming for both teams.
We always end up getting the homecoming for Belle Chasse for some reason, always on camera, and we never really see if it's the homecoming. It just always happens to be the homecoming.
We'll consult with maybe Twinkie Martinez Productions will be able to tell us.
He would definitely be able.
He's working over there right now.
Yeah, he's on hiatus tonight, so we're filming this show without him tonight. But South Terrebonne, they're the Gators. They're green. Coach has been there 30 years, like we said. Nothing else.
That's
really
about all
to
we can
talk
really
about.
report on them. Who did they beat already? Do we know?
No.
I feel like I looked it up too, and neither one of us remember.
I want to say it was another team. Maybe they lost to Terrebonne. It was another team that started with South, but I can't think of who it was, I think. Anyway, that's how much research we did for South Terrebonne, because that's how much confidence we have in Belle Chasse. But
I always find it amazing, and this is kind of off on a tangent, but you talk about South Terrebonne. When you think about the talent that's probably in that Houma Terrebonne area, I think
T-Bone.
Do they just have too many schools? Because it seems like H.L. Bourgeois is never that good.
Well,
they're doing better this year.
They got a good coach now. He's from the Belle Chasse pedigree of coaching trees, so hopefully he's going to be turning some things around. Of course, they lost like 52-46 to Ellender.
Yeah, and I was going to say Ellender's traditionally not that good either,
Right.
so it was like a basketball game broke out.
But you got Vanderbilt Catholic. You got who else in that area?
You've got Terrebonne, South Terrebonne,
Vanderbilt Catholic, H.L. Bourgeois.
H.L. Bourgeois, and Ellender all, that's not a big area to have all those schools,
No.
but there's a lot of kids apparently because they're all pretty big schools.
Yeah, they're all at least above a 3.
And I can pick on H.L. Bourgeois, my fiance Melinda. That's where she's actually an alum from. So.
Wait, did you say ex-fiance?
No, I said my fiance. Oh, gosh.
Just checking.
Oh,
just
gosh.
checking.
Good thing she doesn't live in the parish. She saw that. No, I did not say
I'll
ex.
send her a copy just to make sure. But, like we said, Belle Chasse and South Plaquemines are really going to be able to find out what these two teams are made of in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, it seems like they each have a test game and maybe an easier game.
Yeah.
So
but
we'll have to see where these predictions fall.
Yeah. So far, they both felt like we predicted them. Belle Chasse is 2-0. South Plaquemines is 0-2. We think that's going to change. And we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to give you the recap the trivia question, then give you the trivia answer. We're going to have a new trivia question. And then we're going to have you voting on a couple things that you might not have expected. So all that coming up at Salvo Seafood right after this.
Prep Rewind is proudly sponsored by Deltone Electric and Air Conditioning. We'll fix it in a flash. Reed McClellan with Edward Jones. making sense of investing. Lori Spar Insurance, your independent agent for Plaquemines Parish. Blanchard's Auto Parts, experience the Napa know-how. Bubrig Insurance, the insurance professional of Plaquemines Parish. Amos Cormier, Parish President 2014. One of us to lead all of us. Palazzo Law Firm, experienced trial attorneys. Turf Dogs, an insured and dependable lawn service. Deep South Media and Consulting. We can't stop time, but we can capture. And Twinkie Martinez Productions, a funny name for a serious business.
And welcome back to Plaquemines Prep Rewind at Salvo Seafood. As Jason got his first taste of the clams. Jason, how's the clams?
They are as Amos predicted. They are one of a kind. They are great.
They look like sweet potato fries.
They do a little bit, but they put the fries with them so you know the difference.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, I'll tell you one thing. I'll say it every time I come here. I'm not a pickle guy, but I love their fried pickles. Their fried pickles are delicious.
He's all over these fried pickles.
And speaking of all over things, we were able to get some trivia questions. In the last show, the trivia question was, as you see on your screen, how many Plaquemines Parish residents are currently on SEC rosters? Bonus was name them. And just to give you a couple more seconds, just in case if you want to guess one more time. All right, well, we didn't have a winner. It was kind of a tough question. Didn't have a winner, and we found out that there could have been two answers, but the answers that we found that we're going to go with is 4. But if you guess 5, we'll take 5. But if you answered 4, that was what we thought, because it's players that actually have local residencies listed on their player profile. Quadri Antoine, of course, Mississippi State. Duke Riley of LSU. Not many people realize that. He went to Curtis, but he's got on the roster. He's from Buras. Jeremy Silv, of course.
Bradley Silv.
Bradley Silv. Why do I say Jeremy Silv? Bradley Silv. There was a Jeremy Silv who played for Port Silver back in the day as a wide receiver. That's why. And James Wright, LSU. So 4, and then there was a 5th, which we got to thank Nico Tesvich for finding this out.
Yeah, Nico pointed this out on social media. If you said Lorenzo Phillips, his family is actually from Port Sulphur, but he's from Patterson, so
right, probably a Katrina thing.
Yeah, something like that.
They're a Bartholomew, right?
Yeah, his parents are Bartholomew's from Port Sulphur.
And the reason he found that answer was, why don't you tell him why he found that answer?
Well, because if you were watching the LSU UAB game, you saw Odell Beckham with the 100 yard, because you can't have anything more than 100 in college football. There's a great snapshot of him being blocked, his convoy, as he's going down to the field. James Wright, Duke Riley, Lorenzo Phillips. So he said Plaquemines guys over here, and started running. And they
you
said,
guys know how to block.
And they said we got this. You know, I was waiting for Rocky Duplessis to jump out of the stands and throw a block for him too.
You know, speaking of Rocky, I'm gonna give Rocky a plug. I'm so proud of him for getting his degree. Of course, he's not on the team anymore because he graduated, but congratulations, Rocky, on getting a degree. That was one of, if not the biggest accomplishment I've ever had in my life, was getting my college degree.
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations on that.
And for those that know Cody, getting a degree was definitely an accomplishment.
Hey, man, it took me 6.5 years, but I did it.
So, Dr. Cody, we'll get back to this now.
Now to this week's question. If you thought last show's question was really hard,
so we'll give you a really easy one.
Really, really easy. So easy, we're not giving you a bonus and we're not giving you a hint.
But we are giving you
if you get it correct.
Prep Rewind magnet, which, of course, we have no Carl here, so I'm going to just try and lean in and show you.
There you go. It's a 2014 magnet, just to let you know. It's not a 2013. We're not that cheap. We do have a little bit of money thanks to our sponsors. But Jason, why don't you tell them what the trivia question is?
The question for this week, I believe, is, because you have it covered in your hand. Oh, then you give me the worst printed sheet out here. Who was the first winner of the Plaquemines Parish Battle of the Boot?
Wow, and I think we gave the answer earlier in the show.
We gave the answer. Now, you might not know what the Battle of the Boot is, but somebody around here is going to tell you if you didn't hear it from us. So if you know the answer, there are several different ways you can get it to us. You can, as always, send us an email to PrepRewind@yahoo.com. We got to do it twice,
Rewind.
at yahoo.com.
That's somewhere up in this area.
You can send a tweet, and we are at Prep
Rewind.
At Prep
Rewind.
I don't know why we have to do all these 2 times. Or you can go online to our website, which is plaquemines.prep.webs.com.
And go to our forum page, and there's a trivia question page.
So you can just answer it right there. And first person to answer. And we were talking about this. Our Twitter page now has some players that might have been involved in the Battle of the Boot.
Yeah.
Checking us out. So
I
bet one of those guys know. Now,
if one of you guys answer the question right,
it might be an NCAA violation to give you this schedule.
Gift, but we could always give it to like your parents.
There you go. So
your parents, just put your parents'
say, Mama, come tweet this.
Yeah.
And we'll get it straight.
Yeah, we'll get it to you. So yeah, who was the first winner of the Plaquemines Parish Battle of the Boot is the trivia question. Now we got something different that we're going to do, as far as we asked you folks to nominate people for who were the best football players ever in the parish's history. And Jason, did we get some responses, and do we have some tough choices for these people to vote on? Now, we're going to ask you for everyone except for the linemen. The linemen, you're going to actually vote for 2 offensive linemen and 2 defensive linemen. But for everything else, you're going to vote for 1, just 1. And as you see on your screen now, the nominees for who was the best quarterback, starting off with Mr. Burris, Corey Bowie. The world was his oyster back in 1990 and 1991. He was the offensive MVP in a 91 Burris runner-up state championship game. Of course, Coach Amos was the coach during that time. And, of course, he was a state champion in 1990. Also, Bobby Gravelet, which he was a trivia question answer last year.
You know what makes him such a great quarterback? He could assess the defense.
I like that. He could assess the defense.
He could assess the defense.
It is rumored to believe that he was the first ever Belt Chase quarterback, or maybe Plaquemines quarterback, to get a college scholarship to play quarterback. That's why he's having those knee surgeries now, and he looks as young as ever. Also, Terrence Jones. Do you remember Terrence Jones?
I remember Terrence Jones.
2-time All-State quarterback in 2001, 2002 for Port Salvo, the Broncos. Of course, he's also got a couple state championships.
Absolutely.
And then Blake Mathern. You might ask, why is Blake Mathern in orange? Because he's from Boothville, Venice. That's why we put him in orange.
He started out as an Earler, right?
He started out as an Earler in the 8th grade. In fact, he was going to be the freshman starting quarterback for them when Katrina hit.
And in 2008, he broke my heart in the Superdome as a Shaw alum, watching him run all over us there.
State champion, offensive MVP in 4A, and the only Mr. Football ever for Plaquemines Parish. So a great accomplishment.
An incredible accomplishment.
And then how can we, the last guy, this was so tough. We had so many guys that just missed the list. But Ridge Turner, state champion, offensive MVP, also multiple All-State, and he is still, I believe, the current record holder for the most yards ever from an offensive player in the state's history.
So, yeah, how do you leave that guy? You can't leave him off the list.
Right, so that's the 5 guys that we have. Just who missed the list was Raynell Riley. He was a quarterback, All-State quarterback for Port Salvo in 1978. Bill Bubrig, of course, everybody knows him as Mr. Insurance.
He could ensure that his team was doing good.
Annis Cormier told me that if LSU would have not recruited Mickey Guidry, they said that they were going to recruit Bill Bubrig because he ended up going to Tulane to play baseball, but he was probably the best quarterback he's ever had, that includes Corey Bowie.
So that's a big statement there.
And also Shane Shelley. How does the list of the best quarterbacks in the history not include Shane Shelley, who ended up being drafted in baseball?
By the Tampa Bay Rays, I believe, right?
Him and Chris Henry took Belle Chase to the state championship game.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was tough to narrow it down, but that's the 5 quarterbacks. And then now we'll switch over to the 5 running backs. And the first one, Jimmy Dill, who my mom said was not just a good running back, but apparently one with the ladies. He was a part Native American. She said he had the dark black hair. All the women loved him.
Wow.
He was a 1955 Class A running back. And from what I've been told from people that I've talked to, the best running back ever bar none in the parish.
Okay.
He just not a lot of stats back then, so we don't know too much.
Yeah, it's hard to
about
look
him.
up stuff from that long ago.
Jeff Espadron, 1979 for Port Sulphur, the offensive MVP of the state champion Port Sulphur Broncos. Not many people remember that Port Sulphur won a state championship back before Coach Crutchfield was
I was
there.
gonna say, that was before
but they
Cyril
won a
Crutchfield
couple,
was there. Yeah.
Jeff Espadron, a great running back, and Eddie LaFrance, honorable mention All-State, and 95 and 96. And I believe he's still the all-time leading rusher for Belle Chasse.
I would think so. I mean, started as a freshman and pretty
sophomore,
much carried
junior,
that team to some successful
senior.
years for 4 straight years.
When, of course, I know a lot about him because I was on the team when he was there. And Eddie was being recruited by Tennessee, Ohio State, pretty much every top football program
you name
in the
them, they
country.
were there.
I mean, he had there was him and a guy from Salmon that they called 2 of the best running backs ever in the
I believe
history.
Damian Woods was the running back from Salmon.
Coach Bill Stubbs is Damian Woods. And Eddie was by far, if things would have panned out a little bit better for him, one of the best running backs we've ever seen. Also, Chico Mackey. You remember Chico Mackey?
I don't, but I'm sure you're going to tell me all about him.
1999 All-State running back. Chico Mackey was another one that they said if things would have been worked out differently, he would have been probably one of the best, if not the best running back to come out of this parish. And the last one, another guy from Port Sulphur, Sammy Means.
Just tells you a little bit about the tradition that Port Sulphur has.
1958, Class B, All-State running back. And again, from what I've heard, this guy was a horse. So we got a 1958, a 1955, a 1979, a 1995 and 96, and a 1999. But Port Sulphur has 3 of the 5 guys.
Yeah, so
you know, so that's a great list. Just missed on there. Carlos Guthrie, he was a fullback for Buras, one of the best. Alan Sanders, the first running back out of Belle Chasse to get a college scholarship, went to LSU as a fullback. And another one I was told, Bob Buras, who he didn't make an all-state team, so that's why he wasn't on the list with these other guys. But another one who I was told, if it's not Jimmy Dill, the best of all time, it's probably Bob Buras. But there wasn't enough stats, and of course, you know, with people sending in the nominations, not too many people remember Bob Buras, but giving him his plug. Another Buras one, Gary Mays. And Marlon Prout, a running back from Boothville. Now, I know you remember. You got to remember Marlon.
I remember Marlon Prout. Marlon
Prout was another horse for Boothville Venice. And remember, you can vote for the quarterback and the running back at those same places. You can tweet us at PrepRewind, email us at PrepRewind@yahoo.com. That's
PrepRewind
at yahoo.com. Or go to our website, www.plaquemines.prep.webs.com for the best ever quarterback and running back. You got all the way till week 10. We got a great list of wide receivers. And, of course, we got a great list of head coaches who have won multiple state championships. So we're
I think I work with one of those guys.
What's that?
I feel like I think I work with one of those guys.
Yeah, one of those guys.
I see him on the regular, yeah.
Prep Rewind is proudly sponsored by Deltone Electric and Air Conditioning. We'll fix it in a flash. Reed McClellan with Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Lori Spar Insurance, your independent agent for Plaquemines Parish. Blanchard's Auto Parts, experience the Napa know-how. Bubrig Insurance, the insurance professional of Plaquemines Parish. Amos Cormier, Parish President 2014. One of us to lead all of us. Palazzo Law Firm, experienced trial attorneys. Turf Dogs, an insured and dependable lawn service. Deep South Media and Consulting. We can't stop time, but we can capture it. And Twinkie Martinez Productions, a funny name for a serious business.
Welcome back to Salvo Seafood and Plaquemines Prep Rewind as Jason's trying to finish off the rest of those oysters before the show's over. And speaking of knocking things out, we're going to get to our Week 3 pick'ems. And Now, Jason, I got to admit, as everybody sees on the scoreboard or on the scoreboard,
Ooh, had a
on the
brutal
screen right
weekend.
now, you are 5 games behind coming out of week 1 and week 2.
I am just like Plaquemines Parish. I'm kind of split. I'm about 500 for the
I'm 16 and 4. You're 11 and 9, and of course, score updates from our friends up there, up north. They're 17 and 3, but they had a 10 and 0 week 1, which we've at least kind of make some judgment calls.
Yeah.
Week 3, you're trying to catch up with me, but you can't because we agree on a lot of these games.
Yeah, it seems like there's not a lot of changes of mind here.
Bruley versus Belle Chase.
I know this is, we talked about the big test game for Belle Chase. I just don't know that they're quite there yet. And I think Bruley, again, may not be as good as they were last year, but I still think they have just enough to win this game. Probably going to be a little closer than the experts would think, but I think Bruley wins it.
I'm going to agree with you. The Cardinals do step up in competition, but the Panthers are not driving almost 2 hours to lose.
No.
I mean, you don't just make a game like that to come down here to take a long drive back. Next game, South Plaquemines, Wilkinson County. This is the game I said we split on because I'm a true Plaqueminian and you're not. So why don't we tell everybody who you're not voting for? Tell everybody who you're picking.
I am kind of similar thing to what I just said about Bruley and Belle Chase. I think this is kind of one of those test games for South Plaquemines. I don't necessarily know that they are quite there yet. You know, this is a little bit more of a step, I don't want to say down in competition because I don't think the competition's much less, just maybe down in size. So I think Wilkinson County comes away with this. I think that first travel, especially for some of those younger players and players that never really got a chance to travel on the South Plaquemines team, it's just going to be too much for them, and I think Wilkinson County wins this.
My note says hurricane warning for Mississippi as South Plaquemines blows by Wilkinson County.
Well, there you go.
You like that? Huh? See, he's rubbing off on me, folks. Next game, Rummel at Acadiana, and I know it pains you to pick this game.
Like I said, as a Shaw alum, yeah, it pains me. But as a guy that, you know, you can't not like Jay Roth. That is the most likable man on the face of the earth. So I don't mind picking Jay Roth. They struggled against Hahnville. They almost lost by an odd 5-0 score, but they got a late touchdown to pull it out.
If it wasn't for a hook and ladder twice.
Yeah, you know.
Didn't work the first time, so they said, let's try it again. And Hahnville was like, well, they'll never run the same play again.
Maybe they didn't get it right the first time on purpose.
Right.
So
you got Rummel?
You know, Acadiana, traditional power in 5A in the state, but I think Rummel right now is the power in the state in 5A, so I think they find a way to win this one.
They are the defending state champions, so until somebody knocks them off.
Like they said, they have a state championship that they don't get to defend.
That's right. In a 5A power matchup, Raiders are going to squeak by their second consecutive opponent.
This could legitimately be 2 5A champions playing each other that end up both winning state champions this year.
Next game, Holy Cross and Chalmette, one of the bitter rivals and longest rivalries that the New Orleans area has.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what we've seen so far, Holy Cross is probably about as advertised, maybe even a little better, and Chalmette not so much. So I think we both kind of agree that Holy Cross probably wins this one and wins it easily.
Yeah, the classic matchup brings back fond memories, just not for the Owls.
Yeah.
And the next game, Curtis at East St. John, and boy.
Wow, we can actually say this. Curtis coming off of a loss.
Yeah, I feel for Coach Banco. I mean, he's got Plaquemines roots as far as he's married to a Plaqueminian. But I do not want to be a team that's playing Curtis after a loss, especially their first loss in, 27, 28 games?
Yeah, something like that. And, I mean, a bad loss. They were pretty much walloped in that game.
As people say, pistol whipped.
Pistol whipped, yeah. You can call it that. And, I think Curtis, you know, East St. John, again, not the team we know from 2 or 3 years ago. They're not bad, but, boy, playing Curtis after a loss has got to be brutal.
Yeah, the Patriots are going to take out some frustration. Unfortunately, it's going to be on Coach Banco's Wildcats. Landry Walker at Hahnville. Very good game early on. Landry Walker is the real deal.
I agree, and I think the law firm of Landry Walker – no, wait, that's Jones Walker. I'm sorry. Landry Walker will go in.
That's been Jarvis Green Ellis.
Yeah, he is the law firm, and he had a good game last night if you watched.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think Landry Walker takes this. I think, you know, the question was about their chemistry, and that doesn't seem to be a problem for this team. So look out in the district.
I also agree. The Buccaneers doing a lot more than charging, because they're called the Charging Buccaneers. They are scoring in bunches.
So they're not charging. They're cashing in.
That's right. Exactly. South Lafourche at Shaw. Who's you going to pick, Jason? Let me
Well,
guess.
you know, honestly, if you would have gone off of last season, I think if we'd have just taken last season's results and picked, we'd have both picked South Lafourche.
Right.
I know I'm the Shaw guy, but just judging what Coach Gaines did down there, having a chance to see South Lafourche in person, you know, knowing Shaw struggled first week, their quarterback was injured, you know, they came back the second week and beat, you know, a Fisher team that's probably more their warm-up game for this one. But I think Shaw's got the bodies to hang with South Lafourche a lot better than South Plaquemines did, and I think they have enough people on that team that can just balance out and win that game.
Right. I had a special guest stop by my house. He's moving into, well, he's always lived here, but he's moving into with Edward Jones, Coach Jeff Wooten, and I found it as a sign to pick the Shaw Eagles this week. Normally I would never do it, but Coach Jeff came to my house and said, man, how many times does your Shaw guy stop at my house?
Yeah, when Jeff Wooten, it's like E.F. Hutton. When Jeff Wooten talks, people listen.
That's
right,
right, exactly. So Coach Wooten stopped by the house, and it's a sign, and I'm picking the Eagles. Next game, McDonough 35 at St. Paul's.
Whew. And you know, we talked about that McDonough 35 Lutcher game as being like something that could go either way.
Not quite on the field.
I think we both got, that was one of our both losses, right?
Yeah, we both lost
Both
that
picked Lutcher, and that game ended 40-0 or something.
35-0.
Something really one-sided.
You don't blank Lutcher.
No.
At Lutcher.
So
You just don't do it, and
almost
they did it.
feel bad for West Jeff coming up here in a couple picks here.
Yeah.
Actually, the next one. But, yeah, McDonough 35, just Wayne Reese's team looks unbelievable right now. And, you know, St. Paul's coming off the, I believe, they're 1-1 on the season, lost to Carr, and then beat Jesuit on the last-second field goal.
Last-second field goal, which made Jesuit end up changing their offensive coordinator during the week. Wade Kaiser fired his offensive coordinator and brought somebody else, which is weird for a high school team to do.
Yeah.
Usually you don't see that. But anyway, yeah, who you got in this one?
I got McDonough 35.
McDonough 35, yeah. Blank the top-notch Lutcher team. Ron Eagles mush the Wolves to defeat. Next game, Lutcher, West Jeff, and you said it. As bad as it is to play John Curtis the week after a loss.
And at least John Curtis has to go to reserve and play East St. John. West Jeff has to go to Lutcher. Now, and again, Lutcher's actually 0-2 on the season, kind of a surprise.
Right.
They're missing some guys, but I don't think West Jeff has nearly the dogs to compete with those dogs.
Nearly the dogs, like that. I can't remember the last time Lutcher lost 2 in a row. Besides, I mean, literally, I can't remember the last time he lost 2 in a row. And especially lost 3 in a row, not going to happen.
No.
Next game, St. Aug at Covington.
Speaking of the PO'd teams of the week, how was St. Aug not in a rotten mood after what happened to them last week? Seemingly had that game in hand, and it just went away in a hurry to Edna Carr. So I think that's bad news for the whichever Salter's coaching Covington these days. They got to coach a stadium and everything else, but they're going to be pouring salters in the wounds of Covington at the end of this game.
And I tell you, Covington is a much better team than everybody thought they were. Coach Salter's doing a great job.
But I don't think it matters in this one.
No, and the Purple Knights, like you said, they had the Carr game in hand. Bad play calling at the end of the game doomed them. They were up by 10 points with less than 4 minutes to go, and Coach Crutchfield decides to start throwing the ball. You have Leonard Fournette as your running back. Why are you throwing the ball with a 10-point lead? We'll never know. I'm sure he's going to be kicking himself for that one, but they're just going to out-athlete
Speaking of
Covington.
kicking, that's something St. Aug's got to figure out. No kicker on that team at all, and they could have been up by more points had they had anybody that could kick an extra point.
Bring it back to South Plaquemine days.
Yeah.
Coach Crutchfield's even though the funny part was when you were listening to the game, which was a terribly called game, by the way.
I was busy. I'm sorry.
As far as the commentators.
They couldn't bring me down there.
But his kicking game it's non-existent. Non-existent.
You would think, especially, you can almost understand it at a place like South Plaquemines, but there's got to be some kid that grew up playing soccer that can kick a ball.
Well, and the funny thing was is they kept saying all game that Coach Crutchfield was stressing special teams. Special teams is going to win the game. And apparently there was no special teams whatsoever.
When I was in high school, we saw St. Aug. They always had kickers. Coach Tony Biagas at the time, one of the best ever.
Find a soccer kid.
Yeah. You've got enough kids in that school. You're a 4A school parading around as a 5A school. You've got 700, 800, 900 kids in that school. Somebody's got to know how to kick a football.
Exactly. So that's our week 3 picks. As you see all the rundowns on there, Jason and I agree.
Leave that on the screen for a second.
Yeah, Jason and I agree with a lot of those, except for the South Plaquemines game, of course. But going into week 4, we're going to run through these pretty fast. South Terrebonne at Belle Chasse.
I think we both already talked about it. Belle Chasse kind of wins this one going away. A warm-up to a pre-district. Well, they'll have one more warm-up kind of leading into district, but they win it easily.
Yeah, Belle Chasse shoots up the score, and they skin the Gators.
They chewed them?
They chewed them. Cohen at South Plaquemines, we talked about this game as well. Who you got?
I have Cohen to lose big to South Plaquemines. Had to put a little suspense in there.
Like Lee Corso. Hurricanes continue to prove that they're a top-notch 2A team. I mean,
a Hornet can't fly in a hurricane, right?
No.
So
at least it shouldn't be.
No.
Shouldn't be able to. Next game, East St. John at South Lafourche.
Well, I think Coach Banco gets it straight here finally. And I feel bad because I really hope the South Lafourche team is as bad as I suddenly think it is, because I keep picking against these guys. I don't want Coach Gaines to prove me wrong, come out and win these games 50-0, but I don't see it. And I think East St. John's going to be licking their wounds from that Curtis game and come back and take it out on South Lafourche.
Yeah, Coach Banco is going to have his team taking the frustrations out on Coach Gaines.
Again, that is a hard road trip, but I think it's one that East St. John can.
Former Belle Chasse defensive coordinator taking on a guy who's married to a Plaqueminian. So a little
Plaqueminiac?
I'll say Plaqueminian. So good connections in that game. Next game, Shaw versus Higgins, and you talking about a team that is struggling. Poor Coach Myers. He needs Stephen Myers back.
He wants his brother back.
Because they are struggling. Do we have to ask who you're taking in this game?
I'm going to take the brothers that are still together, and that's Scott and Brian Bansfather at Shaw. Both former teachers of mine, so can't pick against those guys. No, I'm going to take Shaw in this one. Like you said, Higgins just not the Higgins team that we saw for the last couple of years. So.
And as much as it kills me, I got to pick Shaw 2 weeks in a row.
2 weeks in a row now.
Darn Coach Wooten. He just put the juju on me. I got to pick Shaw for him. The next game, Mandeville.
He'd be a good person to sit between us for some of these shows since he's got Shaw and Belle Chasse ties.
Yeah,
He'd be
exactly.
the buffer.
Next game, Mandeville at Ponchatoula. Speaking of former Shaw coaches.
Speaking of Coach Wooten, who was a student of the game of Hank Tierney.
That's right.
Can't pick against the fighting Hank Tierney, so.
I didn't think you would.
No, I'm going to take Ponchatoula in this one.
This is one of the games that you and I disagree on. Mandeville, it's going to be a tough district environment. It's opening district game for both of these teams. But, hey, Mandeville still got Cayette, which is, I believe I said that right. It's got a little French with it. And he's a heck of a quarterback. He's going to be the difference maker, I think. But you going to stick with
I can't
Hank
go
Tierney
against Hank
because he's
Tierney.
going to find you and make you run laps
Yeah,
if you don't
he will.
pick him. Next game, West Jeff at Landry Walker.
Poor West Jeff, man. What a brutal schedule they have set up for themselves.
Exactly.
We talk about it. Landry Walker meshing is one. I don't think West Jeff even stands a chance in this game.
The Charging Buccaneers taking on the regular Buccaneers. Kind of trying to figure out what exactly the difference is.
Yeah, how that works.
Well, I guess a Charging Buccaneer would actually be a horse, and a Buccaneer would be the one with the sword.
Maybe so.
Maybe like Tampa Bay Buck. I don't know. But Charging Bucks, they run by the regular Bucks, remain unbeaten, which would be the key part, as they're looking ahead to Carr in 2 weeks. Can you imagine? Carr undefeated, Landry Walker undefeated, 2 weeks. The Battle of Algiers remains alive, and it's a district game.
Get your tickets now.
Exactly. We'll be busy, of course.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, it's just poor West Jeff. And then Helen Cox and East Jeff, a game with 2 head coaches that I like. I like Coach Brooks, and, of course, I like Coach Salter Formaggio.
Well, and I think this time we're both going to go with the Salt man there and pick Coach Salter Formaggio.
The Fighting Salter Formaggios.
East Jeff looking good so far this year. Helen Cox really not so much. Again, I think this is kind of an easy pick, but I think we both go with East Jeff here.
Yeah, Coach Salt's team's just too talented. Next game, West St. John at Holy Cross. Are you going to stick with the Catholic League, or are you going to venture out and go with a public school?
This is a tough game for me. I looked long and hard as I made. This was probably the one pick out of the 20 we have here that I really hung up on for a while and looked back and forth. And My thought is that if this game was maybe in Edgard at West St. John, I might have gone with it. But, you know, when all else fails, you pick the home team, right? So I'm going to take Holy Cross in this one. I think Coach Wilson's got that team doing great things, and this will probably be their biggest test game in the early part of the season.
So you're going to take the kids from Edgard, you're going to put them on turf.
True enough. True enough.
Yeah, I got the guys from Edgard. West St. John, Coach Valdez is just taking over the Lori DuPont program, Coach Lori DuPont actually resigned as the VC athletic director. But I got West St. John, the top 1A team, travels to New Orleans and takes down the Catholic League in a major upset. Next game, Kentwood at Independence, not underneath the water tower. It's in Independence.
And I think because of that, again, these are two teams. I think they're both 1-1 right now on the season. You know, kind of trying to weigh different factors. I went with Independence. I'm going to go with the home team one more time. I just think that
So you're making a declaration.
A declaration for independence.
That's right. Ha-ha. I got Kangaroos pouncing on the Tigers and another upset pick for me. See, because I have that like 5-game cushion. I can kind of sway a couple. I can lose 2 games.
So we're hoping he's wrong with all these upsets.
I can still have a 2-game, you know, lose 2 games and still be up 3, so I'll be good. And the final game, St. James at Riverside. Not your mama's St. James team either. Not my St. James team either.
And maybe not necessarily your mama's Riverside, but a much closer version of that than what they had the last couple of years.
Closer to your mama's Riverside than your mama's St. James.
Absolutely right. So I think this is an easy pick. I think we go with Riverside in this one.
Yeah.
The Fighting Bill Stubbs will win this one.
They're still upset from that game they let get away against Evangel. So if you look at the picks on the screen, now we differ on Mandeville Ponchatoula. We differ on West St. John and Holy Cross, and Kentwood and Independence. Jason trying to come back and gain some of the games that he lost.
I'll still be in second place because I'm 5 down. I think for the whole thing here, we only differ on 4 games. So
yeah, well, technically you're in third.
Well, yeah,
you're
third.
In second out of us, which would mean out of me and you, I'm first.
That just means
second.
I'm picking up the tab tonight, I think is all that means.
Prep Rewind is proudly sponsored by Deltone Electric and Air Conditioning. We'll fix it in a flash. Reed McClellan with Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Lori Spar Insurance, your independent agent for Plaquemines Parish. Blanchard's Auto Parts, experience the Napa know-how. Boobrig Insurance, the insurance professional of Plaquemines Parish. Amos Cormier, Parish President 2014. One of us to lead all of us. Palazzo Law Firm, experienced trial attorneys. Turf Dogs, an insured and dependable lawn service. Deep South Media and Consulting. We can't stop time, but we can capture it. And Twinkie Martinez Productions, a funny name for a serious business.
And welcome back to Plaquemines Prep Rewind live at Salvo Seafood. If you haven't noticed, we changed the angle. Instead of just
you
having
can see some of the people in here with
behind us, you get to see some of the nice workers that Salvo's has, and you get to see how busy they really are on a nightly basis.
And this is just, you know, some random Tuesday night that we do the show. It's not like it's, you know.
And I tell you what, whenever it's packed, they're still nice enough to save us a table.
They save us a table.
They stepped up and let us have our show here, so we love Salvo Seafood. I mean, we can't say enough about them. Jason, I think we pretty much ate them out of house and home tonight.
I ate them out of oysters and pearls.
I always like to save my
I mean, I got a little bit to eat.
Yeah, you got a little bit to take home. Yes. So for everybody, of course, I usually say Twinkie Martinez behind the camera, but Twinkie wasn't behind the camera tonight. Twinkie had to go do something else.
Carl, you're going to be sorry you missed this food.
I know.
Just saying.
So for Jason Tonglet and myself, good night, everybody. Remember, stay classy. I guess you could say like this guy. This guy's pretty classy this week.